The US has a population base that's 10 times the population of Canada, and the barriers to moving goods between the countries is not so profound. It's really just moving on the ground or in the air, being concerned about containers and air freight. In the early stages, you probably don't want to have a huge capital outlay in terms of putting a warehouse in the US. So it's about flexible solutions that will scale and grow with you over time.
In 2026, scaling a small business means looking beyond domestic markets and leveraging North American supply chains to unlock entirely new revenue streams.
If you feel that the US is really a logical next step for your business, don't let that be the barrier. But make sure that you have the right partner that will support you and that will pivot as you need to pivot over time.
Hello everyone, this is Kripa Anand and welcome to the She and Success podcast, a national platform spotlighting powerful women who are shaping the future of business, leadership and impact across Canada. Here we bring you real stories, bold journeys and conversations that inspire growth, visibility and success. Today we are exploring the massive growth potential hidden right across our borders. In 2026, scaling a small business means looking beyond domestic markets and leveraging North American supply chains to unlock entirely new revenue streams. Joining us today is Heather Ongley, Director of Sales for Global Business Development at Purolator. With over 20 years of corporate sales experience and a decade of leadership at Purolator, Heather directs the enterprise teams responsible for cross-border logistics and strategic account acquisition. She is an expert at turning complex supply chain headaches into streamlined, customer-centric distribution strategies. So, before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Heather, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me today.
Now, Heather, many Canadian small business owners limit themselves to, domestic shipping because international expansion, it feels like a game only for the giants or big corporations out there. From your perspective, I'd love to understand and start the conversation. Why should Canadian SMEs start shipping cross-border today?
It's a great question, and I can appreciate that it seems a little scary from the get-go for SMEs, but the potential is huge. The U.S. has a population base that's 10 times the population of Canada, and the consumer in the U.S. has similar buying patterns to consumers in Canada. So it makes it a great first step maybe into international outreach, international shipping, or international customer base beyond Canadian borders. So I think it's a great first step. That said, it's never been such a great time to be a Canadian business. Canada, as a nation, is extending our reach beyond North America. So there's potential outside of the North American borders as well. But U.S. certainly is a great first step, and there's not a lot of the barriers to moving goods between the countries is not so profound. It's really just moving on the ground or in the air. We don't have to start being concerned about containers and air freight and a whole bunch of other things that add complexity. And for the most part, it's pretty streamlined trade lanes between Canada and the U.S. So it really is a good first step for small business owners.
Definitely. I think that there's this familiarity with the U.S. market that, makes it the obvious first step in global expansion. And stepping into the broader North American market, it allows an SME to immediately diversify its customer base and significantly scale its potential revenue as well. So that's great to know. Now, let's explore navigating early stage fundraising under pressure. So what should businesses know before, launching a cross-border shipping strategy today that they already know, but they're not very mindful about?
That's a great question. I would say research who your customer is, because the U.S. can seem huge when you're looking at it as, like one straight organization. But if you're selling a product that maybe has a more regional appeal, know which regions you want to go into, know what your customer looks like, how you would, advertise to that customer. And I think it really starts with really great research. But, when you look at your business in Canada, your business in the US might not be hugely different. So you're probably trying to attract the same consumer in the US that you would in Canada. And that should give you an idea of scale when you're looking at the US. I would say the other thing, too, is when you start to contemplate how you're going to approach that market, it's really about scalability of solutions, because in the early stages, you probably don't want to have a huge capital outlay in terms of putting a warehouse in the US or even partnering with like a big logistics company that's going to maybe give you some warehousing space in the US. So it's about flexible solutions that will scale and grow with you over time so that you can keep your capital investment low and you can grow that customer base and grow the revenue stream and then start to look at more permanent solutions.
Very well articulated. I think, mapping out your own compliance requirements ahead of time, it kind of prevents unexpected border delays from, destroying your profitability and then eventually that customer trust as well, right? So even what you said, emotionally capturing your local audience well is, I think, the ultimate thing that changes the entire game. Great to know that. Now, Heather, let's look at choosing the right logistics partner for growth. What should entrepreneurs look for in cross-border logistics partner? Go ahead.
Really, flexibility, I think, as a first step. Flexibility and a really trusted partner that's going to spend the time and learn what your needs are, because it's not going to be probably a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
So understanding, what is your business plan? Who is the customer that you're looking to ship to? What is that customer's expectations? Are you thinking about maybe working with a distributor model where you're going to be moving things to a distributor and then wholesaling across the border? Or are you going to be working directly with an end consumer who may have a real emotional attachment to that purchase? And what do you want that to feel like for the customer? So we always think of the transportation element as like the last element that touches the package before a consumer touches the package if it's a B2C type sale. So you definitely want to consider that. And then share that with your logistics provider. So have the conversation around expectation. What are the timelines like? Is your customer base okay waiting a few days for the parcel or the goods to arrive? Or do they really need it next day? And that's going to help give an idea of, what type of solution would it be? Is speed more important than an economical transportation solution? Or do you need a blend? Because maybe you need one type of transportation solution for one type of customer, something else for a different type. But I think it happens, I think the magic in it is having a really deep conversation with your transportation provider so that they understand what your needs are and then can build a solution that's right for you.
Wow, love that answer. And also, today's customer is intelligent enough, smart enough to know all these things. And they care about the experience that comes with everything that you've just said,
Yes.
right? Partnering, I think, with an established provider that balances extensive local reach with cross-border, expertise, it removes the execution anxiety from your international growth plans as well. So there's this trust, that support from the back end that is going to take you a long way ahead in your journey as well.
Yes.
To the ambitious retail and tech founders watching, in 2026, a delayed shipment is a lost customer. Purolator has been raising the bar for integrated freight and logistics for 65 years, operating one of the most extensive networks capable of reaching even the most remote Canadian and North American locations. Heather and her global business development team are actively working on a highly anticipated research paper dropping late this June to help small businesses navigate tariff uncertainty and trade volatility safely. If you're ready to stop fearing the border and start dominating new markets with a premier logistics partner, visit Purolator.com today. Deliver on your promises with a supply chain built for cross-border success. Purolator. We're going to take a short break right here, but don't go anywhere. There's still more to unpack on cross-border growth, customer trust, and building smarter supply chains for future. We'll be right back.
At Purolator, we understand the importance of every delivery, whether it's a document, a special gift, a critical healthcare shipment, or an entire warehouse worth of inventory. Throughout our more than 60-year history, we've honed our expertise to build out a powerful portfolio of logistics services that enable us to deliver on every promise. Whether shipping across town or around the globe, from small and medium-sized businesses to industrial, technology, retail, and healthcare sectors, Purolator serves a diverse array of customers. So no matter what, where, or when you're shipping, Purolator's expertise, experience, and innovative solutions enable us to deliver on your promises.
Welcome back to the She and Success podcast. Let's continue the conversation with Heather Ongley as we dive deeper into navigating trade disruptions and building a shipping strategy designed for long-term growth. Now, let's explore managing communication during supply chain disruptions. So, Heather, how should businesses communicate to their customers during global trade disruptions? How do you suggest?
It's been certainly a challenging 2 years, and it's hard to stay on top of all of the changes all of the time. So make sure that you're working with a partner that truly understands them. I always think of as an SME or an entrepreneur, like your passion is your business, but it's not necessarily all of the support pieces that go outside of your business, but those can really impact your customer base and in the end, your business. So make sure that you're working with a transportation provider that understands all of the changes, is communicating them to you on an as-needed basis, is updating their systems to reflect whatever is happening at the border, whatever it is that you need to know. Certainly their website should be updated with all the most current information, but also having the ability to pick up the phone and call and ask. So we have the trade desk at Purolator. You can call and ask questions. You can call and ask questions in our customer service department. If you have a dedicated customer service rep, you can call and ask questions to your customer service rep. So we have professionals that will help you with those questions before you even ship a box if things have changed, so that you're comfortable and that you make sure that your customer experience remains intact. You certainly don't want to have a situation, or we'd like to avoid a situation where things are hung up at the border that could be avoided. And really that just comes down to arming yourself as best you can with the information, from the get-go, but making sure that your transportation partner is really there to help you in a personalized way. And I think that being a Canadian company with people in Canada that can help you, with an extensive team behind our small and mid-sized business owners to support, that's a real differentiating factor for us, because you're literally calling people in Canada who know this inside and out and do it every single day and can help.
Beautiful. I think proactively managing customer expectations during a supply chain crisis specifically, it, preserves your brand reputation and turns a logistics bottleneck into a trust-building moment, right? Because only in a moment of crisis, you know what matters and what not. Finally, let's look at building a strong shipping strategy from the ground up. For all of our listeners right now, where should a business start when building its first cross-border shipping plan? Because we know the basics, but when you're actually jotting down everything, what do you think is the first thought or the first practical step that they can take to actually achieve that?
There's a lot that goes into it. So thinking about, how are you going to advertise your product, and what platforms or technology needs to go into actually creating an order? And can your transportation provider then plug into that technology so that you have a pretty seamless way of generating actual shipments that are going southbound? Will you be able to handle, customs, duties, all of those requirements too within a technology provider? Do you want something a little bit more standalone that can help you with that? So I think from just the nuts and bolts, there's a lot to consider. And I think increasingly in our space, it does go back a little bit to technology, to the ability to connect platforms, and flexibility again, too. So as you're considering what it's going to look like for you, do you want something where you're going to fulfill the U.S. from Canada? Is that your first step? And generally speaking, for a small business, that is the first step, sending the orders southbound. And then as you scale, are you going to put more of a permanent footprint in the U.S.? So once you have that base, you have a pretty clear idea of what the flows are like. Does it make sense to put a location in the U.S.? And then how would that change things for you? And then the other piece I think that we probably don't talk enough about is just taking a broader supply chain strategy. So when you work with a company like Purolator and you trust them for your Canadian shipments, so serving your Canadian marketplace, are you also using us to move goods from outside of the world that are maybe more of a raw material or an input to whatever you're manufacturing here in Canada? We can help with that as well. So moving things from overseas into Canada, as well as connecting from Canada to the US. So think about Canada as maybe that hub in the spoke of your supply chain, and work with a provider that really understands that probably the majority of your base today is here in Canada. Can they meet those needs, and can they help you extend beyond Canada's borders?
Wow, I think breaking your expansion down into a simple, phased roadmap as you clear out, it allows you to test international waters without overwhelming your current fulfillment teams as well. On that note, let's do a little time travel now.
Okay.
Imagine if I were to give you a time machine and we were to go 5 or 10 years into the future. When you get out of the time machine, how exactly do you envision the shipping industry changing globally?
Oh my goodness. That is a good question. Well, first of all, I hope that CUSMA has been renegotiated and it's amazing for Canadians.
Of course.
I think that's what we're all hoping. I hope
Yes.
that, and I also hope that, as a nation, we've expanded our partnerships beyond just the U.S., which I think we're starting to do that with the current government, really looking at how we connect to Europe, how we connect to Asia. What did those trade lanes look like? And there's so much potential for small businesses as those negotiations happen and as those deals happen. I think there's a great opportunity to look even beyond the U.S.
Yeah.
But I think we'll still be very close to the U.S. There's still a very, very important trade partner for us. So I hope that we're in a really great place from a trade agreement perspective that really allows Canada to flourish the way that we will, I'm sure,
Right.
and the way that will provide opportunities for small business owners to sell their goods on a global stage, which would be great.
Beautiful. I love that vision. You've painted quite a picture there. And we cannot have this conversation without the mention of artificial intelligence as well. So, with everything that's going on right now, where the world is headed, how do you suggest, or what is your advice to SMEs out there to use artificial intelligence mindfully in their operational workflows?
I think it's great for quite a few things. I think it's great for doing research on who your customer base is, getting access to, aggregates of information that maybe today is a little bit difficult to start with. So when you're looking at, where you should go from a growth perspective, what products are hitting, what aren't. I think AI does a great job of helping you with that. I think it does a great job as well with when you're writing business plans or drafting things to create a solid foundation for your business. It can help really well there, and it can certainly help in the customer journey base. So how you interact with your customer behind the scenes, guided by AI, how buying behavior may be changing, probably faster than you would maybe notice otherwise if you were looking at the data. I think those are things that AI can help you with. I think that it's going to revolutionize all of our jobs if it hasn't already. But I think it's helping, it's not replacing. I think it's helping us make decisions faster in a more informed way, in a way that maybe and aggregate huge amounts of data into pretty easy to digest flows that then SMEs and business owners can make great decisions. And I think there's a lot of power in that.
Definitely great advice there. On that note, another advice I'd love for you to give is for SMEs out there who are worried about the tariff and trade uncertainty right now, if you could whisper one thing into their ears, what would you say and why?
Don't worry. It's changed so many times, and I can understand that seems scary, but make sure that your partner understands and is there to support you. I really think it's probably less scary than people think with the right partner. So there's a lot that the right partner can help you with. If you feel that the U.S. is really a logical next step for your business, don't let that be the barrier. Do the research. Talk to a company like Purolator. We can help advise you. And also, there's not one size fits all. We have different solutions based on what it is that you're looking to achieve. So explore those, but don't be scared.
That was pretty reassuring, I'm sure. Now, Heather, She and Success, as you know, is all about empowering the women in business, right? So, for all the women who are listening to you right now, when women enter a male dominated field, specifically tech, finance, AI, right? Um, there's this feeling of not belonging there, right? I'm sure as women, you also must have, walked into such rooms and felt certain way. When you go through these things, what is your first reaction, and how do you sort of deal with such situations? Because right now in Canada, women are contributing equally to the economy, right, if not more. But they are still struggling to find a seat at the table.
Mhm.
And that right now, I'm proud to say, is changing, because women right now have stopped even asking for a seat at the table. They're creating their own tables, right?
Yes.
So, uh, on that note, how do you envision this entire scenario that's going on?
I love that you brought up the creating your own table. We talk about that all the time at Purolator. I'm very conscious that although I work on the corporate side of the business, which is pretty equally representative of a male-female balance, certainly once you get into our operations, it skews far more male. So that's certainly something that, is familiar in my workplace as well. And that whole concept of creating your own table or making the table bigger, there's a making the pie bigger for all women is something that I think is just so incredibly important. But know your worth.
Yeah.
Know your worth. Know, what you bring to the table, and speak your truth. Women have so much to share. And although it can seem from the outset to maybe be a little bit daunting, attitudes are changing. Do I think they're changing fast enough? No, I do not. But it is happening, right?
There's
The
hope.
conversation is really happening, and I think it will continue to happen with having, our male counterparts be advocates for women and be supportive, and for women to support women, which is the most exciting thing I think that I see in my workplace, and it's probably one of the biggest conversation points in the last 10 to 15 years as well, is that this notion of women competing against each other is such an old notion, and women are really here for each other. So, find your people, find the people that are going to support you, share ideas, and magnify each other's voices. I think that's so incredibly important, and change is happening.
Beautiful. I think what you said, when women lift each other up and support
Yes.
each other, it's the most beautiful and empowering thing in this entire universe. I'm loving this conversation, and definitely we'd love for her to be back, hopefully, for a deeper discussion in the next episode that we do. But for now, Heather, before we let you go, if there's one final piece of advice that you have for everyone, men, women, SMEs, who are unsure about, where to take that first leap of faith from, what would you tell them and why?
Make sure that the partners that you're working with are really trusted advisors in your organization. A company like Purolator, we just take a very consultative approach. So, we're there to help. Ask the questions, and if you're not maybe getting the answers right away that you're comfortable with, keep asking questions. Continue the dialogue until you have that level of comfort that you're working from a really solid business base, and then go ahead and take the leap. Because, I think there's so much that can happen virtually now from a customer perspective. If you know that the customers are out there, don't let the perception that reaching your customer could be a little scary or a little bit challenging
Right.
block you from that. I think you're on a learning journey. So when you start, if you've never done it before, mistakes will probably be made. That's okay. That's just part of learning. But make sure that you have the right partner that will support you and that will pivot as you need to pivot over time, and that can help you scale and grow.
Wow, that is a great reminder that having the right partner to demystify trade data and just be there for you is what makes international growth possible. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that was Heather Ongley from Purolator, a masterclass in cross-border shipping frameworks, navigating tariff uncertainty and leveraging North America's premier logistics network to scale your small business in 2026. Thank you for listening to She and Success. To learn more about how we are supporting women entrepreneurs beyond the platform, visit the She and Success Foundation at sheandsuccessfoundation.ca. A special thank you to our exclusive shipping partner, Purolator, for the ongoing commitment to supporting women entrepreneurs and helping them build, grow, and lead successful businesses across Canada. Visit sheandsuccess.ca to explore more stories, insights, and powerful voices. And join us again as we continue to celebrate women who lead, build, and inspire. See you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.